sky was burning red with the glow of alien warships. Their engines hummed like thunder, and their weapons shone with deadly light. From orbit, the alien fleet had already destroyed Earth's satellites, blasted its communication stations, and crippled its modern defenses. Now, the invaders were laughing. They were the Varrock, a warrior species feared across the galaxy. Their commanders stood on their massive flagship, watching Earth's last defenses through cold, glowing eyes. They saw broken planes, ruined drones, and shattered missiles. To them, the war was already over. "Earth is finished," one Varrock officer hissed. His sharp teeth caught the light. "They have no more advanced weapons. Nothing left to fight. Us." Another laughed, his voice like a growl. "And now look, they roll out their antiques. Metal beasts with wheels and tracks. Human tanks? Old, outdated machines? Do they think these will stop us?" The command deck erupted in cruel laughter. To the Varrock, tanks were nothing but relics. The galaxy's armies had long abandoned such ground weapons. Why fight with steel when one could fight with plasma, drones, and machines that flew without touching the dirt? But down below, on Earth's surface, the humans were silent. They were not laughing. Colonel Harris stood on the smoking ruins of a city, his uniform torn and dusty. Behind him, rows of tanks lined up in the shadows. Some were old World War, 2 relics brought from museums. Others were modern, but still considered weak against alien weapons. Their paint was chipped, their armor scarred from years of training, yet every single one of them was ready. He looked at his crew soldiers with grim eyes, grease-stained hands, and hearts beating hard inside their chests. These were not the soldiers of a perfect army. They were mechanics, farmers, and students who had been called to war. And they had only one thing left: the tanks. "Sir," one young gunner whispered, "they're laughing at us. They think we're stupid. They think we're bringing toys to a real fight." Colonel Harris's face did not move. His eyes stayed fixed on the horizon, where the alien machines marched closer, giant walkers with glowing cannons, as tall as buildings, stepping slowly into Earth's soil. "Let them laugh," Harris said softly, "because when the laughing stops, it will be too late." The alien war machines advanced with mechanical precision. Each step crushed cars, cracked concrete, and shook the ground. Their weapons fired blasts of energy, destroying what was left of the human cities. Varrock were certain no primitive tank could stand against such power, but the humans had learned something in centuries of war. Tanks were not just machines. They were wolves of steel, hunting in packs, silent and deadly. And unlike alien walkers, they could vanish into forests, tunnels, and ruins. They did not need skies, they owned the ground. Inside one of the tanks, sweat dripped down the forehead of Sergeant Miller. He gripped the controls, hearing the rumble of the engine beneath him. His crew checked the shells, loaded the main gun, and waited for the order. The radio cracked. Colonel Harris's voice came through, deep and steady. "Men and women of Earth," he said. "They think we are weak. They think we are outdated. Show them what it means to fight humans. Show them what it means when the ground itself becomes our weapon. Tanks. Move out," engines roared. The Earth shook. Not from alien machines this time, but from the rolling thunder of tanks. Dozens, then hundreds, then thousands of armored beasts crawled from the ruins, from the forests, from hidden bunkers, long forgotten. Their barrels pointed forward, their tracks crushed debris, their steel hearts growled with fury. The alien commanders stopped laughing. "What is this?" one hissed. "They had so many, they cannot win," another spat, but his voice shook. "Old machines against war droids, they will break." But as the tanks charged, their guns thundered like storms. Shells screamed across the battlefield, slamming into the alien walkers with earth-shaking force. The first walker staggered, its glowing shield flashing, then shattered. A second was hit in the knee joint and collapsed with a groan of metal. Varrock laughed no longer. Inside the tanks, human crews shouted with fury and hope. Each shot they fired was not just steel, it was defiance. It was humanity refusing to kneel in the smoke and chaos. Now, Sergeant Miller's tank slid behind a ruined building, fired a shell straight into an alien droid's chest, and disappeared again. Another tank flanked the machines from the side, targeting weak points, striking where no alien had expected. The battlefield was no longer the aliens' playground. It was a hunting ground. The hunters were Earth's old tanks. On the flagship, the alien commander's claws dug into the armrest of his chair. His voice shook with rage. They fight like ghosts. They vanish, strike, and vanish again. Is not war, it is madness? But it was not madness. It was humanity. Colonel Harris, standing in the command post with radio in hand, whispered only one word as he watched the first alien war droid collapse in flames. Begin. And so, it began the battle where the old beasts of Earth rose again, where steel and fire met alien technology, where the laughter of the Varrock turned into silence, and where humanity showed that even in the age of the stars, their real strength was never forgotten. Smoke filled the sky as the tanks roared forward. The battlefield had turned into thunder and fire. Alien walkers, once proud and towering, now struggled to stay upright as shells hammered their armor. The Varrock fleet above Earth watched in shock. They had come to crush, not to be challenged. On the ground, Colonel Harris's voice cut through. The radio again. Keep moving. Don't give him a steady target. Strike fast, strike hard. The crews obeyed. Tanks fired and rolled, then vanished behind cover. They hid in ruined streets, darted through forests, and used tunnels dug decades ago. Wherever the aliens turned, shells came from another direction. Sergeant Miller's crew was one of the first to score a kill. Their shell smashed through the leg joint of a glowing walker. The machine staggered, then toppled like a broken giant. Dust and fire burst into the air as it hit the ground inside Miller's tank. Cheers erupted. "We got one," his gunner shouted. But Miller's voice was sharp. "Don't cheer yet. We're still in their hunting ground." Above, on the alien flagship, the commander stared in silence. Screens showed burning walkers, tanks swarming like iron wolves. Their plasma blasts tore holes in the earth, but the humans were too fast, too clever. "They are improvising," one Varrock officer said quietly. His voice carried unease. "Improvising?" The commander snarled. "This is chaos. Primitive chaos." The officer did not answer. He could see something. The commander refused to admit this was not chaos. This was strategy. Back on Earth, Harris stood inside a makeshift bunker watching the battle maps. He knew that tanks could not win in a long fight. Alien technology was stronger, their weapons deadlier. But humans had one advantage: the Varrock had forgotten cunning. "Phase 2, Harris said into the radio. "Draw them in." Across the city, tanks began to retreat in controlled movements. They fired, pulled back, and fired again. To the aliens, it looked like fear, like weakness. The Varrock commander leaned forward, claws clicking on the control panel. "They run," he hissed. "Yes, chase them. Hunt them down." The walkers advanced, heavy feet smashing through ruins. Their glowing cannons fired at shadows, at rooftops, at anything that moved. They thought the humans were cornered prey, but Harris was smiling. Beneath the streets, in old subway tunnels, more tanks waited in silence. Engines off, barrels ready, crews holding their breath. They had been hidden there for days, waiting for this exact moment. The aliens marched above, unaware. Now, Harris whispered, engines roared to life underground. Hidden tanks burst from collapsed tunnels and side streets. They came out like steel wolves from the shadows surrounding the walkers. Shells fired upward, striking from below, tearing through weak armor at the joints. Alien machines stumbled, toppled, and exploded one after another. The battlefield lit with fire and thunder. Sergeant Miller's tank swung around, targeting another walker's glowing chest. "Fire," he shouted. The shell hit dead center. The walker's shield cracked, then shattered. Its body erupted in a storm of fire. Miller's crew roared with victory. The alien commander slammed his clawed fist against the console. "Impossible. These are machines from centuries ago. How do they fight like this?" The officer beside him answered with quiet fear. They fight like predators, Commander. They use the ground, use the shadows. They fight as if every tank has a mind of its own. The commander bared his teeth, then burned the ground itself. Leave them nowhere to hide. Above Earth, the Varric fleet shifted. Warships angled their cannons downward. The order was given. Orbital bombardment. Colonel Harris saw the sky flash. His heart sank as beams of plasma rained down, tearing through city blocks. Buildings melted into fire. The ground split open. Tanks were thrown like toys. Orbital fire. Harris shouted into the radio. Scatter. Break formation. The battlefield became a storm of destruction. Sergeant Miller's tank was nearly flipped by a blast that struck nearby. The crew held on as heat and shockwave roared past them. Sir, they're wiping out everything? Miller's gunner cried. Keep moving, Miller growled. His hands were steady even as the ground burned. If we stop, we die. If we move, we fight. But the truth was clear. Earth's tanks could not win against the sky. Harris clenched his fists. He needed another move, something the aliens would not expect. Then the thought came. The tanks were not the only beasts of steel Earth had hidden. He turned to his aide. Get me the rail lines. Activate the armored trains. The aide stared in shock. Sir, those things haven't run in decades. They run today, Harris said coldly. Tell the crews. The ground will fight back. Deep in old depots and forgotten tunnels, engines that had not roared for half a century began to wake. Massive steel trains, armored and bristling with cannons, started to roll once more. The battlefield was far from finished, and in the alien flagship, silence fell again as sensors picked up something new, something massive moving across the ground. What is that? The commander whispered. His officer answered, voice trembling. Earth still has more beasts. The night shook as deep rumbles echoed across the land. At first, the alien walkers thought it was the Earth itself cracking under their bombardment. But then, from the far horizon, lights appeared. Not alien lights, not plasma, but the glow of something far older steel giants rolling on iron tracks. The armored trains had awakened. Colonel Harris stood in the underground. Command post, radio pressed to his ear. The sound of heavy wheels grinding against rails filled the speakers. His chest tightened with pride. Humanity had always built machines that lasted even when forgotten. Report, he demanded. A crackling voice replied, filled with excitement. This is Iron Serpent, reporting ready. Cannons loaded, engines full power. We're coming in hot. The commander's lips curved into a thin smile. Then let the Varrock see what Earth hides in her bones. Above the burning city, the alien commander's fleet picked up massive movements on their scanners. He frowned, claws tapping on the console. Something is coming. From the ground? And then they saw them. Steel monsters stretched across. Tracks armored with plates thick as bunkers, bristling with cannons and rocket launchers. They were relics of an age when humanity feared invasion on their own soil. Museums had once displayed them as cold reminders of history. Now they were alive again, moving with the fury of war. The alien officer whispered in disbelief. They fight with trains. But there was no time to laugh. The first armored train entered the battlefield, its guns unleashing a storm. Dozens of shells tore into the legs of a walker, ripping it apart. Rockets followed, streaking upward and exploding. Against glowing shields, the walker collapsed in a storm of sparks. Another train came, sliding from a tunnel hidden under a mountain. Its guns rotated, spitting fire like dragons of steel. The battlefield became chaos as tanks swarmed from below and armored trains rumbled. From above the tunnels, Sergeant Miller's tank rolled beside one of the trains, the ground shaking under its weight. He looked up in awe. Never thought I'd fight beside one of these beasts, he muttered. His gunner laughed, adrenaline in his voice. She's beautiful. Makes even our tank look small. The train's cannons roared, blasting another alien war droid apart. For the first time since landing, the Varrock machines hesitated. Their confidence wavered. On the flagship, the alien commander hissed with rage. Impossible. This world is backward. They should have nothing but sticks and stones.
How many weapons?
Have they hidden? The officer's eyes were wide. They have. Stew, Commander, and they use it. The commander snarled. Then burn their history. Leave nothing standing. Above Earth, the fleet prepared another wave of orbital fire. Plasma beams powered up, ready to rain death again. But this time, as the humans were ready, from hidden valleys, old missile silos opened. Rockets rusted, patched, but still deadly blasted upward in bright trails. Some failed, exploding in the air, but others struck true. One warship's shield buckled, sparks flying. Another was forced to veer off course. Colonel Harris gritted. His teeth, watching the explosions on the horizon. Not enough, he muttered. We can't reach them all. Then the radio crackled again. It was the commander of Iron Serpent, the lead armored train. Sir, give us clearance. You can stop. They're fire. Harris frowned. You'll be exposed. The voice was steady. We didn't wake up to hide. We woke up to fight. Harris closed his eyes, then gave the order. Go. The Iron Serpent thundered forward, racing along broken tracks at impossible speed. Its guns spat fire at every alien walker in its path, tearing them down like toys. Then, with a deafening roar, the train burst from the ruined city straight into the open plains. And there, it revealed its true weapon. Panels on its sides opened, exposing massive anti-air, guns ancient, but still lethal. The cannons turned skyward and unleashed a storm of fire. Shells ripped into the sky, slamming into alien ships trying to line up orbital shots. On the alien flagship, alarms screamed. They're targeting us from the ground. The commander's claws dug into the console, shields up, turned fire. Beams of plasma rained down on the train, exploding all around it. Tracks shattered, Earth split, but the Iron Serpent kept moving. Its guns hammered the sky until one alien warship finally exploded, falling in flames into the atmosphere. On the ground, Miller's tank crew shouted in awe. They hit a ship. My God, they hit a ship. The battlefield erupted with hope. Every human heart burned with new fire. If a train could bring down a ship, maybe, just maybe, Earth could survive. But hope came with a cost. The alien retaliation was brutal. Plasma fire struck the Iron Serpent again and again until its armor glowed red. One cannon melted, another was torn away. Still it kept firing, refusing to stop. Inside the command post, Harris gripped the radio, tightly listening to the last transmissions from the crew. Guns overheating. Keep firing! Shields breaking! Keep firing! And then silence. On the horizon, Harris saw the Iron Serpent's final act. With its last breath, the armored train fired all remaining guns at once. The sky lit up as another alien warship's shield shattered, its engines bursting into flames. The massive ship fell, crashing into the ocean with a roar that shook the earth. The train burned, its body torn apart, but it had taken giants with it. In the command post, Harris bowed his head. Rest well, Serpent, he whispered, but even. As he mourned, new reports came in. More trains were on the move. More tanks were regrouping. Humanity was not finished, and above, for the first time. The alien fleet hesitated because the humans had shown something the Varrock had never seen before: strength. Not just in weapons, but in spirit. The battlefield burned through the night. The wreckage of alien walkers lay twisted in the streets, their glowing cores flickering out like dying stars. Tanks still rolled, their engines roaring, while armored trains continued to thunder across the rails, shaking the ground with every strike. For the first time since they invaded the Varrock, fleet had stopped advancing. Inside the flagship, silence filled the command deck. Dozens of officers stared at the screens, showing Earth's defenses still alive. Their pride had been wounded. This was supposed to be an easy victory. Instead, it had become a fight. The alien commander's claws scraped across the metal armrest of his chair. His voice was low and dangerous. They fight with machines from their past. They fight with iron and fire. And yet we bleed. One officer spoke carefully. Commander, perhaps? Perhaps they are more dangerous than we believed. The commander's eyes burned. No, they are insects. But insects that hide in shadows. If they fight like wolves, then we will burn the forest. No more precision. No more patience. We cleanse this world. Orders spread through the fleet. Above, Earth alien warships shifted formation. They stopped targeting only tanks and trains. Instead, they began burning everything. Plasma rained from the sky, setting forests ablaze, turning rivers to steam, collapsing whole mountainsides. They wanted to leave the humans nowhere to hide. Colonel Harris watched from the underground command post as the world above glowed red. His jaw tightened. "They're not just after our army," he whispered. "They're after everything." Reports crackled over the radio. Towns gone, forests burning, roads melted. Civilians fleeing into bunkers. "They'll burn the whole planet to kill us," Harris muttered. His aide looked at him in horror. "What do we do, sir?" Harris closed his eyes for a moment. Then he said, "We take away their sky." Blinked. "Sir? You mean—" "Yes," Harris said. His voice was cold, heavy with decision. Operation Blackout. The order went out. Across Earth, hidden crews prepared weapons not used in decades. Massive rocket systems were rolled out of mountains. Radar jammers powered up. Old space defense cannons, covered in dust, hummed to life. But Harris knew these alone would not be enough. The Varric fleet was too advanced, too shielded. Humanity needed something unexpected, something insane. He leaned over the map, his finger tapped the oceans. Their ships stay above water because they think it is safe. They don't know what waits beneath. The aide's eyes widened. "You can't mean submarines?" Harris nodded. "Beneath the dark seas. Old nuclear submarines. Stirred, silent hunters, forgotten relics of another era, crept through the deep. Their captains listened as orders came through. "This is Earth Command." Harris's voice echoed in their radios. "Your prey is above. Do not miss." The ocean hid their approach. Alien ships floated over the seas, shields glowing, weapons, firing on coastal defenses. They did not know the deep water below hid killers. In the black silence, hatches opened. Missiles rose from beneath the waves, bursting into the air like spears of fire. The first volley streaked upward, faster than the aliens could react. One warship's shield shattered. Another missile punched through its belly, exploding deep inside. Fire and smoke tore through the ship as it fell into the ocean with a scream of metal. On the flagship, the commander roared in fury. "From the water now?" His officers scrambled. "Commander, they fight from land, from tunnels, from rails, and now from under the seas. They are everywhere." The commander's claws clenched. "Then crush the seas. Drain their waters if we must." But even as he raged, more missiles launched, more submarines fired. The oceans themselves became weapons, spitting fire at the sky. On the surface, Sergeant Miller's tank crew watched as alien warships burned above. The explosions lit the night like a second sun. His gunner's jaw dropped. "The subs are in the fight now, Harris. That madman really did it." Miller smiled grimly. "Madness or genius, it works. The victory was never easy." The aliens adapted fast. Warships pulled higher into the atmosphere, staying out of range of submarines. Drones were deployed in swarms, diving into the oceans to hunt the subs. Colonel Harris saw it coming. His eyes narrowed. "They're adapting faster. We need to hit them harder, something they don't expect even now." One officer turned to him. "Sir, what else do we have?" "Ride. The tanks, the trains, the subs we've thrown everything already." Harris's voice was quiet. "Not everything." He looked at the map again. His finger tapped an old mark deep inside the desert, a place no one had spoken about for years. A place where the world had buried weapons too dangerous to use. His aide followed his gaze, then whispered in shock, "Sir, you can't be serious. That project was abandoned. It's unstable." Harris's eyes were cold as steel. "Then it's perfect. If the aliens want to laugh at our old machines, let's show them one more ghost from our past." Above, the alien commander leaned forward, rage twisting his face. "They resist. They claw and scratch like cornered animals. But I will crush them. I will break this planet until nothing is left but dust. Yet even as he spoke, deep below the desert sands, massive doors began to rumble open. Dust and smoke poured out as something long buried started to wake. Not a tank, not a train, not a submarine. Something older, something far more terrible. The ground itself began to tremble. The desert shook. At first, the Varak thought it was an earthquake. Their sensors picked up violent tremors, dust storms rising, and massive energy surges beneath the sand. The alien commander leaned forward, his glowing eyes narrowing. "What are they doing now?" he hissed. The answer came a moment later. From beneath the desert, giant steel doors cracked open. Sand poured down into the black abyss as gears that had not moved in decades groaned back to life. Lights flickered in the darkness below. A shadow began to rise. Colonel Harris stood inside his command bunker, his voice steady, though his heart pounded. "Project Titan is awake." The aide beside him swallowed hard. "Sir, I thought this project was scrapped. Too dangerous, too unstable." Harris's eyes never left the screens. Yes, too dangerous to use against ourselves. But against them, it's exactly what we need. The ground split wider. Out of the desert rose something massive, larger than any tank or train. A war machine built in secret during the darkest years of Earth's pasta. Machine so powerful that governments had sworn never to use it. It was a land fortress. Steel towers jutted from its back like the spines of a beast. Its tracks were wider than highways. Its armor was thick enough to shrug off nuclear blasts. Mounted across its frame were cannons, dozens of them, designed to fire non-stop. Raining destruction on anything in sight, the Varak fleet fell silent. Even they had never seen a ground machine this size. The alien commander's voice trembled with rage and disbelief. "They built that on this primitive world? That monster?" His officers whispered nervously. "Commander, the humans. They built it for war against themselves. But now, it is for us." The land fortress roared to life. Engines deep inside thundered like earthquakes, and its cannons opened fire. The desert lit up as shells streaked into the sky, exploding against alien ships. The shields of the Varak vessels flared under the constant bombardment, struggling to hold. On the ground, tanks and armored trains cheered with thunderous guns of their own. Humanity had unleashed its greatest beast. Inside his tank, Sergeant Miller watched in awe as the fortress rolled across the sand like a mountain on the move. "Mother of God," he whispered. His loader shook his head. "I didn't know we even had something like that." Miller's mouth curled into a grim smile. Neither did the aliens. The Vok responded quickly. Swarms of drones poured from the fleet, diving toward the fortress. Plasma fire rained down, striking its armor. But the land fortress did not stop. Its anti-air cannons spun to life, shredding the drones in midair. Explosions filled the skies as the great machine pushed forward. The alien commander slammed his claws against the console. "No more games. Focus everything on that fortress. I want it gone." Warships turned, their weapons aligning on the desert. Plasma beams lanced downward, tearing into the sand, striking the fortress again and again. The ground quaked, armor melted. Towers shattered, but still, the fortress rolled forward, guns blazing. Colonel Harris listened to the reports, his voice steady. "Titan is hit. Titan is damaged, but Titan still fights." One officer turned to him in panic. "Sir, if that thing's core is unstable, one hit could I know," Harris cut him off. "But better it explodes in their faces than rusts in our desert." The land fortress fired again, this time unleashing its secret weapon. From its central tower, a railgun powered by ancient but deadly technology roared. Slug of metal shot upward faster than sound, faster than plasma. It tore straight through an alien warship's shield, punching a hole clean through its hull. The warship split in half, burning as it fell into the sea. The battlefield erupted in cheers. Humanity roared with hope, but the cost was heavy. Plasma beams struck again, hitting the fortress's left side. One entire section collapsed, burning. Crews inside screamed over the radio as fire consumed them. Sergeant Miller's face hardened as he watched the flames. "She's dying," he muttered. Yet even in death, the fortress refused to fall quietly. Its cannons kept firing, its engines still pushing forward. Smoke poured into the sky, but it fought like a beast cornered. On the flagship, the alien commander snarled, "It will not die." "Why will it not die?" An officer whispered fear in his voice. "Because it is human, Commander, and humans do not surrender." The fortress's railgun charged again. Energy built up, crackling with light. Harris knew what it meant. He whispered under his breath, "One last shot." The railgun fired. The slug ripped through the air, tearing into the alien flagship's shield. The shield shattered like glass. The slug struck the hull, tearing it open. Explosions ripped through the flagship, fire spilling into space. Inside, the alien commander was thrown from his chair. Alarms screamed. His officers shouted in panic, "The shields are gone! We are breached! Commander, we must retreat!" But the commander's eyes burned with fury. Retreat? Against this backward world? Never. Outside, the land fortress finally groaned its last. Its engines sputtered, its guns fell silent, and with a deafening roar, it collapsed into the desert, a mountain of steel dying in fire. But it had done its job. It had broken the pride of the alien fleet. On the ground, tanks regrouped, trains reloaded, and submarines prepared for another strike. Humanity had lost a beast, but gained a chance. And above, for the first time, the Varak commander felt something alien to his kind fear. The desert still burned where the Titan fortress had fallen. Smoke curled into the sky, its steel body glowing red. Its cannons melted into silence. For a moment, the battlefield was quiet. Only the sound of distant fires and the rumble of retreating alien warships. But the silence did not last. Above Earth, the Varak fleet regrouped. The alien commander stood in the wreckage of his flagship's bridge, blood dripping from a wound on his brow. His ship shook under repair crews, sparks falling from shattered walls. But his eyes burned with rage. "They dare," he hissed. "These humans dare." His officers stood silent, afraid to speak. They had seen humans fight with tanks, trains, submarines, and now even a fortress. And still, the humans would not surrender. The commander slammed his clawed fist down. "No more mistakes. We will crush their minds, not just their machines. Begin the assimilation strike." A low murmur spread through the command deck. Assimilation was forbidden by most races of the galaxy. It was a weapon not of strength, but of terror. But the commander did not care. Soon, great ships broke formation, releasing strange devices into the atmosphere. Black spheres fell to the earth, humming with alien energy. When they struck the ground, they cracked open and released clouds of nanites. Invisible to the eye, the nanites spread like a disease. They flowed across battlefields, seeping into machines, corrupting engines, silencing radios. Tanks ground to a halt. Missiles froze before firing. Even armored trains shuddered as systems went dark. On the ground, Sergeant Miller's tank was one of the first to feel it. The engine coughed, lights flickered, and the controls froze in his hands. "What's happening?" the gunner shouted. Miller slammed his fist against the console. "They're shutting us down. It's not damaged, something in the air." Across the battlefield, radios screamed with panic. "My engine's dead. Systems failing. We can't move." In the command bunker, Colonel Harris gritted his teeth as reports poured in. "They've released machine killers," he muttered. "They know our beasts are steel and fire. Now they want to strip us bare." His aide looked at him with wide eyes. "Sir, if they take our machines, what do we have left?" Harris's answer was cold. "Us. That's what we have left." He turned to the radio. "All units, listen. Carefully, if your machines fail, abandon them. Regroup on foot. The battle is not over. The war is not in our engines. It is in our hands." But even as he spoke, the alien commander leaned over his console, watching Earth's defenses collapse. His laughter echoed across the deck. "They thought their history made them strong. Now, their history rusts. They are nothing without their beasts. Yet once again, the aliens underestimated humanity. Miller's crew abandoned their silent tank. Crawling out into the burning streets, around them, other crews did the same. Men and women, covered in dirt and smoke, stood where their machines had fallen, but none ran. None surrendered. Miller looked at the ruined city, then at the sky glowing with alien ships. His voice was steady. "Fine, if they want to take our tanks, we'll fight without them." And so began a new kind of battle. With their machines dead, humans turned to old weapons. Soldiers scavenged rifles, explosives, even knives. Civilians poured from bunkers with Molotov cocktails and homemade bombs. Engineers wired traps in the ruins, setting mines under rubble and explosives in sewers. The aliens expected the fight to end. Instead, the fight only changed shape. Drones landed, searching for helpless prey. But from rooftops, humans threw fire down on them. From alleys, they rushed with explosives strapped to their chests. Alien patrols found not a broken army, but a hidden one fighting tooth and nail with whatever they had left. The commander's eyes widened as reports flooded in. Assimilation incomplete. Resistance continues. Casualties rising. He slammed his fist. "How? They have no machines left." His officer spoke quietly, almost with respect. "Commander, perhaps they do not need them. Perhaps they're true. Weapon is not steel." The commander's lips curled in a snarl. "Then I will erase their weapon. I will erase their will." Back on Earth, Harris moved through the underground bunkers, meeting the soldiers face to face. He no longer spoke only through radios. His voice carried through ruined halls, through burning streets. "They think we are weak without our machines," he told them, "but we built those machines. Our hands, our minds, our fire. If they kill the machines, they cannot kill the makers. We are humanity. We are the weapon." The soldiers roared with defiance. The battle raged on through the night. Humans struck from shadows, burned supply pods, destroyed alien drones with stones, fire, and fury. Every street became a trap. Every ruined building became a fortress, and slowly, the aliens began to feel something they had never felt before. Not just resistance, not just defiance, but the weight of fighting an enemy who refused to break. The alien commander stared at the burning world below. His claws trembled. His voice was quiet, almost uncertain. "What? Are these creatures?" The world burned. The Varick nanites had silenced Earth's tanks, trains, and submarines. The mighty machines that once roared now sat dead and lifeless. Nothing but cold steel on a battlefield of fire. The alien commander stood tall in his damaged flagship, staring down at the planet. His voice was cold, filled with pride. "At last, they are broken. At last, their beasts are gone." But deep below, in the ruins and tunnels, humanity still moved. They no longer fought with giant guns or steel monsters. No, they fought with knives, rifles, bombs, and fire. Colonel Harris walked through a shattered subway tunnel, his uniform torn, his face lined with exhaustion. Soldiers and civilians gathered around him, waiting for his words. "They believe we are finished," he said, his voice low but steady. "They believe we were only strong because of our machines. But they are wrong. Machines are tools. Our true weapon has always been us." He looked each soldier in the eye. "Our brains, our hands, our hearts. That is what they cannot kill. So if they shut down our beasts of steel, then we become the beasts ourselves." A murmur spread through the crowd. They were tired, bruised, covered in dust and smoke, but their eyes began to burn again. Meanwhile, above Earth, the alien commander prepared his final move. "Deploy the mindbreakers," he ordered. His officers hesitated. The mindbreakers were forbidden weapons, designed not to destroy bodies, but to shatter thoughts. But the commander's rage was too strong. Great machines descended from the ships, releasing waves of psychic energy across the land. Invisible storms tore through human minds, filling them with whispers, illusions, and fear. Some soldiers clutched their heads, screaming as their vision blurred. Shadows of dead loved ones appeared before them. Voices whispered that the war was lost, that Earth was doomed. Sergeant Miller dropped to one knee, his skull pounding with voices. You cannot win. You are weak. You are broken. For a moment, despair threatened to swallow him. But then he remembered the sound of his tank's engine, the roar of the armored train, the fire of the Titan fortress. He remembered Harris's words, "We are the weapon." Miller's fists clenched, shouted through the pain. "Get out of my head. I am human. We don't break." Around him, other soldiers did the same. They fought not with guns, but with willpower. They shouted, they sang, they roared in defiance. And slowly, the psychic storm began to falter. On the flagship, the alien commander's face twisted with shock. They resist even this. His officer's voice was quiet, almost fearful. Commander, perhaps they are built to resist. Perhaps. That is why their machines are so stubborn. Their minds are the same. The commander roared in frustration. Then I will crush them all. Burn the planet if I must. But Harris had already planned his counterstrike, gathered his officers. In the bunker, pointing to the glowing map of alien fleet positions, "They want to break our minds," he said. "So we strike theirs. Not with steel, not with fire, but with something they never expect." His aide frowned. "Sir, what could break them? Their minds are stronger than ours." Harris shook his head. "No, their minds are armored. Armor has cracks, and we will hit where it hurts." That night, small human teams moved through the shadows, carrying no heavy weapons. Instead, they carried old tools of war radios, speakers, transmitters from rooftops. Forests and tunnels, signals began to flood the airwaves. Songs, voices, stories, laughter, the sound of humanity itself. Across the battlefield, alien machines picked up the signals. Their soldiers, connected to their fleet's psychic network, suddenly heard voices not of fear, but of hope. They heard humans singing in the middle of fire. They heard children laughing in the ruins. They heard stories of Earth's history. Wars survived, disasters endured. Victories won against impossible odds. It was not noise, it was defiance. The Verak soldiers began to hesitate. Their claws shook. For the first time, they felt something. Strange doubt. On the flagship, the commander bared his teeth. Shut it down. Block their signals. But his officers looked uneasy. One of them whispered, "Commander, I can hear them too. Their voices, they do not fear us." The commander struck him down with his claws, but the damage was done. The seeds of fear had spread through his own army. On the ground, Harris stood among his soldiers, a small radio crackling at his side. The voice of a child came through, singing a simple song. Soldiers smiled even through the smoke and blood. "They want to break our minds," Harris said softly. "That instead we will break theirs." Above Earth, the alien fleet wavered. For the first time, their perfect discipline cracked, and Harris knew the endgame was close. The skies above Earth were alive with fire and fury. The Verak fleet hung like a cloud of destruction, their warships blazing with energy, their guns primed to burn the planet to ash. But on the ground, something had changed. The once quiet resistance was now a storm of voices and fire. Colonel Harris stood on a rooftop, watching the warships. The sounds of his soldiers, laughing, singing, fighting filled the air around him. He could hear their defiance in every step they took. He had seen his people suffer. He had watched as their machines fell silent. But he also saw what the Verak had underestimated humanity's spirit. The radio crackled. A voice came through, barely audible over the noise of battle. "Sir, we've hacked into their fleet's communications. We have a chance." Harris's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" The voice continued. "We found the Verak's central command network. They rely on their psychic link, but it has a weakness. If we can disrupt it, we can cut off their connection to the fleet." Harris's heart skipped. This was it. The final strike. "Do it," he ordered. "Now." Across the city, teams of soldiers and engineers moved swiftly, setting up devices near Kivarok communication towers. They didn't need heavy guns anymore. They only needed the power of human ingenuity wires, signals, and determination. The devices hummed to life, sending waves of interference into the alien network. Up above, the alien warships began to shift unsteadily. The alien commander, on his flagship, slammed his fist against the console. "What is happening?" he roared. "Why are we losing our connection?" His officers scrambled, fear creeping into their eyes. "The human interference, Commander, is disrupting our psychic link." The commander's eyes widened in realization. "No, they've found our weaknesses?" On the ground, Sergeant Miller's voice came over the radio. "Sir, we're seeing their shields flicker. We have a chance." Harris nodded grimly. "Prepare everything. We're going to hit them where it hurts." The warships above Earth faltered. The psychic connection that held the Verak fleet together was weakening. For the first time, their warriors felt isolated. They began to hesitate. The commander's voice crackled over their radios, trying to rally his soldiers. "Focus. We fight. We crush them now." But the unity he had once commanded was fraying. The alien officers looked at each other, unsure. Their confidence was cracking. Down below, Harris's forces were closing in. They had one shot at this. His troops had no tanks, no trains, no fortress. But what they had was something the Verak had failed to understand: the power of sheer will. The strength of people fighting for their world. Sergeant Miller's tank, though silent, was pushed into the battle once again. It was nothing more than a shell, stripped of its systems, but with humans at the helm. A small unit of soldiers rushed forward, carrying explosives. They had nothing to lose. As they approached the heart of the alien fleet's command, Harris watched from a distance. His heart raced. Everything depended on this final strike. "Fire the missile." Miller's voice came through the radio, sharp and clear. From the ground, a rocket streaked upward, striking one of the largest warships dead center. The explosion sent shockwaves through the fleet, shaking ships out of formation. The shields flickered, collapsed. Then the warship was torn apart in an instant. It was a single missile that broke the fear, the control, the illusion of invincibility. The commander, now in full panic, saw his forces lose their grip on the battle. Some ships began to retreat. Others tried to retaliate, but their weapons faltered without the psychic network guiding them. "Retreat," Commander finally shouted. "Pull back. The humans are too dangerous." But it was too late. The retreat was chaotic. Alien ships fired in desperation, but they could no longer focus. The once feared Verak fleet was scattered, confused, disjointed. Harris's voice came through the radio again. "This is it. Hit them hard while they're disorganized. No mercy." And humanity did what they did best. Turned the tide. Missile strikes, gunfire, homemade bombs, and sheer courage filled the air. The alien warships, now weak and vulnerable, were cut down one by one. The humans fought like a tidal wave, unstoppable. Relentless back in the sky, the commander of the Verak fleet saw his empire crumble. He bellowed in rage, his claws furiously tapping against the shattered console. This cannot be. We are the masters of the galaxy. How could we lose to these creatures?" But even as he raged, the last of his ships were falling. Earth's skies were alive with victory. Humanity had endured. Humanity had fought and won. On the ground, Harris stood tall. His face was smeared with dirt and blood, his uniform torn, but his eyes burned with pride. He looked at the skies as the last of the alien ships fled, broken and defeated. "They came to destroy us," he said quietly. But they didn't understand. They didn't understand what makes us human. Around him, his soldiers cheered. The world had been saved. The war was over. And as the sun began to rise over the ruined cities, humanity's strength echoed in the silence that followed. The battle had been long. The cost had been high. But Earth had not fallen. It had risen, and the Verak would never return.